Hey everybody, it's Piano Man Steve Lungrin, founder of LearningMusicIsFun.com, where we teach piano players to play rock, pop, and country music. This video blog is not what I would call an important one, it's just a fun one. Over the years you might have noticed that I didn't have much decor up in my studio. I was very much a minimalist. Had just basic white walls anytime you had one of those video blogs, and I knew it looked like crap. Trust me, I was just far too lazy to do anything about it. But I had enough people over time say, Steve, you really need to do something about the environment. I like your blogs, but it's hard to watch them because there's nothing there. It's just you and your keyboard and these white walls, and I feel like you're in a prison cell or something. So I finally went into storage and I got all my memorabilia out, and I put some of my favorite stuff up on the walls. I'm going to show you the stuff, and I'm going to show you the other stuff that I haven't found a home for yet. But now, I don't have what I'd call the most impressive collection of memorabilia by any stretch of the imagination. I am not much of a collector, to be perfectly honest with you. I remember the experiences vividly, and that's sort of my memorabilia from it. I just love that. So I don't tend to buy a lot of trinkets and whatnot and then have a big, keep them in mint condition and all of that. But I do have a few things that are special to me, so I thought I'd show you some of them. Starting with, I walked you through, in one of my video blogs, I walked you through my first Billy Joel and Elton John concert. Right here, this was the program that I got from that. And you'll notice that that's also this ginormous poster right here that's on the wall behind me. I found that. Now this poster actually apparently came from like a UK tour, something over in Great Britain and Ireland in about '98, and they just hawked the photographs from this because Billy Joel didn't look like that in 1998. I know that because I saw him. He was wearing a beard at the time. But in their very first, in 1994, summer of 1994, as this says, that's when I saw them in Ames, Iowa, and that's the show that I walked you through in that blog. But this big, huge poster you're seeing there, a friend of mine was in an old record store in Lincoln, Nebraska, of all places, and it's called Recycled Sounds. And they had that poster for sale, and of course I have been a total dork for Billy Joel and Elton John for as long as I can remember, so it was obvious. He said I couldn't not buy it. I had to buy it, and he gave it to me for my birthday, which was really awesome of him. Thanks, Harlan. I appreciate that, dude. So anyway, I finally put that up, and it's so big, like there's hardly enough wall space for it, but I love it for that. And I like the way, when I'm sitting here doing my video blogs, I look like I'm the third piano player in the poster. And I put it there on purpose that way, because I do dig that. It's positioning. Okay. But this is my program, and there's all kinds of good stuff in it, like there's a write-up on Elton, who was in exceptionally good shape at that time, I might add. He was fairly new in his sobriety and whatnot, was doing well. And there's Billy, who was exceptionally stressed, if I remember at that time. I think that's when he was losing money hand over fist from being screwed by his ex-manager, and he was going through a divorce with Christy at the time, so he was working as much to kind of get himself out of a hole as anything, but I think he had a good time on that tour. And then they have this little picture that, of them each doing their thing somewhere. And again, and this was nice. One thing I remember about this period of time was that Elton, for a few years, starting in about 1989 or something in that neighborhood, he started playing like a Roland keyboard instead of a grand piano at his gigs for about 4 or 5 years. And this tour with Billy Joel, if I'm not mistaken, was the first time back to using a grand piano instead of that little keyboard. Because he used the keyboard on the One tour, he used it on the Sleeping with the Past tour, And he kind of took a long break in between those albums anyway. So when he came out on the road with Billy, prior to the Made in England album, but kind of when the Lion King soundtrack was all out, he came back out with a grand piano, and he's been at a piano ever since. Or it's kind of like a big computerized clavinova thing now, but it's a piano, not just a little keyboard. So that was cool. And they have this little spread, which I really love, because it's so apparent which one's gay and which one's straight, which I think is pretty charming about that. They said, wear black and white, and Billy took that to wear a black suit with a white shirt, and Elton said, all right, let me get some zebra pants out. I love it. It really shows their personality off. But see how they did everything here with like the British flag. Elton John's thing has it's the Yukon Jack, and Billy Joel's the Stars and Stripes, and that's kind of how the stage was set up. Just kept having like an American and a British theme all over the place. So this was a cool program. I really enjoyed it. This was Elton's touring band at the time. This is before Dee Murray came back, so he was actually but Ray Cooper here was in the group, and then Elton did his first series of solo tours with just him and Ray Cooper again since like the late 70s, shortly after this, so that was cool. But they had Guy Babylon, which passed away just a few years ago, was on keyboards and synthesizers. That was a shock when he passed away. It was maybe last year or the year before that. Of course, they had Bob Birch was on bass, who I think is still with him, and then a guy named Charlie Morgan was on drums, but he has since been replaced by not Dee Murray, Nigel Olsson. Dee Murray passed away. He was the original bass player, but Nigel Olsson, who was the original drummer that went out with Elton back in like 69, 70, that era, for about the first 6 years, and then they had another little they joined up again in the early 80s for a while. He's back with them and has been with them since sometime in the 90s, and that's cool. It's nice to see Nigel playing with them again. And then Ray Cooper, and of course Davy Johnston's on guitar like he always is. And this is Billy's band at the time. This is essentially the River of Dreams tour lineup, because this whole thing that happened was basically like an interruption of the River of Dreams tour. I think he had more River of Dreams dates after they got done with this, maybe overseas or something, but they did this little summer tour together of stadiums. And he had Liberty was still in the band on drums, Liberty DeVito. Crystal Taliaferro, of course, was there. Mark Rivera, of course, was there. Those two have been, Crystal's been with him since 89, and Mark Rivera, I think, joined him in 82 and hasn't left. Tommy Burns, who joined up with him during the Stormfront tour in 89, was on guitars. Dave Rosenthal, who joined during that tour, I believe, the River of Dreams era, was playing keys and synthesizers, and he's still who plays with them, if I'm not mistaken. And then the bass player at that time, they haven't really had a static bass player in the group. It's changed up almost every tour since Doug Stegmeyer left in like 1987 or something. But T-Bone Wolk was the bass player, and that was fun to have because T-Bone I recognized from the Saturday Night Live band. So that was cool. I'd seen him on Saturday Night Live a lot for years, and so that was kind of fun that he was on that tour with the band. And let's see, is there anything else? Wasn't really anything else in here worth pointing out, I don't think. Just a few more credits from different people in here, but the crew and whatnot. So that was a cool one. I'm not going to go through every one of these in that same depth, but then I went back and saw them again in 2002, and I got this, which to me looks like they kind of threw it together. They sort of threw this one together. There was a lot more thought put into that first one, but this was, oh, we don't really look like that anymore. I don't think we can use that art anymore. And they're like, all right, let's get together and have a Polaroid real quick. Okay, okay, snap, okay, boom. And then they kind of threw this thing together, and this was in just arenas, not in stadiums. And this is clearly from their first tour, but it's still in there. There's a quote in here. Elton says, "I like to work. I don't like sitting still. I think if you've got the energy and you've got the ability, you just can't." And Billy says, I don't know what I love to do, I knew what I loved to do, and I did what I loved to do. My job became my friend, my fortune, and my great love. Well, isn't that sweet? So that's kind of cool. And they had a little, see, now this was Billy Joel in the late 90s. I saw him a couple of times when he was like that with the beard, and that's pretty much what he looked like in that day and age. It didn't look like he was going bald yet, but you can see here that it's starting to recede a bit. So I don't know if he was wearing a piece or if he just went through enough stress that it finally worked its way out, but he started shaving his head basically almost bald by the time they did this. A lot of fun. This is kind of in the Billy Joel's Greatest Hits Volume 3 era, and this would be in the Elton John, that album that he did, I think it was Songs from the West Coast era. I believe he did a couple tunes from that period of time on this tour, and that was kind of fun. And so this was cool. It wasn't as good of a program as the other. I mean, I shouldn't say the show was fine, but the program, the physical program, wasn't as cool. But this one, we're back here. See, this is the bands. There's Nigel Olsson back in the group, Elton's original drummer, and still had the same bass player and the same guitar player. And there's Guy Babylon again, who was on keys and synthesizers. And these other guys I'm not 100% sure on. But then Billy, at this time, we still had Liberty was in the band. There. Dave Rosenthal was still in the band and still is. Crystal, of course. Tommy Burns was the guitar player. Mark Rivera, of course. And then he had a couple of chicks that were doing some singing for him, and another guy named Andy Chichone. And so they were just sort of like extra vocalists or something at the time, I think. I don't believe that they had the trumpet player yet that was with him in 2006 through like 2009 or so. So anyway, kind of fun. Just, here they are. Andy Chichone was bass and vocals, excuse me, and then you had, let's see here, just a couple of extra vocalists and the ladies that were there, the extra ladies. So, pretty cool. It was a good show. I personally liked the stadium show the best, and maybe it's just because it was the first one I ever went to. But it was a little bit more exciting for me than this one, but I enjoyed this one a lot too. It's a lot of fun. Billy had a black eye at this one. This was in Kansas City, and apparently, if you've ever seen him live when he's doing songs like Still Rock and Roll to Me, he picks up the mic stand and twirls it around and throws it around and stuff, and apparently he was doing that at a gig like the day before or 2 days before, and he conked himself in the eye with one of the legs of the stand. So he had a big bruised black eye, and he made a joke when he first came on stage about it when he said, you know, Elton's got a little bit of a temper, and we're backstage, and he told me I wasn't playing very well, and I said, well, I'm not going to work any harder, and he just sort of took matters into his own hands, and I'm going to work my ass off tonight because I can't handle it. That guy can take me. So that was pretty fun. That's just a second program I have from the original show. And then this is a Billy Joel program that I got on his tour through Vegas, or on his stop in Vegas when he was playing in 2008, 2009. It's just a picture of his hand on the keyboard. Of course, there's Billy's dad. I mean Billy these days. That's a joke he makes. It's just funny. But this was a lot of fun because he was playing a lot of stuff from the catalog that we hadn't heard in a long time at that time. Just some old vintage footage. And so we had a lot of fun on this particular outing, and it just mostly this is like pictures. There's not a lot written in here, to be honest with you, and this showing off sort of his love for motorcycles. That's no offense to any of you if you're motorcycle fans, but that's something I do not share with him. I think they're noisy and hot and dangerous, but I can get behind boats with him. So he loves boats and he designs boats, and I love to be out on the water. Don't particularly like driving boats, but I love to be on them with someone who's decent at doing the job. And we had Tommy Burns and Mark Rivera again in the band. And at this point we had changed to a new drummer. I think his name's like Bergie or something like that. So Liberty's out. Dave Rosenthal was still there on keys and synthesizers, organs, that kind of thing. And of course he's playing a Yamaha motif because that's what everybody's using these days on those things. This Andy Chichone is still on the bass. I think he's from Australia or something. So, and then Crystal on percussion and saxophone and pretty much whatever they need her to be on. She and Mark Rivera kind of play about anything. And then they had this cool dude, this Carl Fisher, who played trumpet and flugelhorn and extra saxophone, and he was just sort of a go-to horn dude. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed those. I went to probably 2 or 3 shows during that little stint of time. This was when he was out in 2006 with basically the same band, and it's when he was promoting the My Life box set, and so enjoyed that. Basically the same band, but he had a couple of extra fun things. Richie Kanata there, that was his original saxophone player, and he sat in with them for that tour, you know, that series of shows. This is basically the tour in the same group that he used when they did the 12 Gardens live discs, and that was really fun. The other one, this one, was the same stint when they did the Shea Stadium concert. So that's the group and the lineup and kind of the show that they were doing then. And there's a picture of Richie in action along with Mark Rivera. So they had lots of horns. They could have 4 horns at the same time if they wanted to at that time. And Billy had sort of gotten in decent shape. I can tell he'd lost a little weight here and blah, blah, blah. And it's a pretty solemn look he's got on his face. So, I mean, he kind of looks like he's pissed off. Maybe he is. Maybe he's like, I don't want to be at this stupid photo session. I want to go do these gigs, and then I want to go back to my hotel room and eat hamburgers or whatever. I don't know. But there's him again on a motorcycle. But apparently he's got a motorcycle shop over there in Long Island somewhere with like 100 bikes or something. There he is in shorts, and you know, it's all right. He's entitled to wear shorts if he wants to, but that dude should wear pants in photographs. Let's just say I can tell he's white. But that's okay. He can't be any whiter than I am. So, and I wear shorts, and I wear them on videos. So really I have no business criticizing. There's him doing Piano Man. And is there anything interesting? Again, we've got, Chuck Burgee is the drummer again. So Liberty was gone, but there's Richie and Mark and Tommy Burns and Dave Rosenthal again, and there's the Chichone dude, bass player. There's our really awesome, this is the first tour with the trumpet player guy, so they could do Zanzibar, and there's Crystal. So, fun stuff. Then just some more pictures of everybody, but see how they've got like 3 saxophone players going at the same time. That was fun on things like Moving Out at the end. Da, 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 da. That was really cool. And then this is just some of the people that are like behind the scenes. Crew. So really fun series of shows that he did on that. So I have fond memories of that. That was shortly after I moved to Vegas, and on the back they've got this picture that Alexa drew years ago that was on the cover of the My Life. On the cover of the My Life thing, box set. This is when I saw the Eagles, the farewell tour in 2004. This is fun. That was a good show. I kind of missed having Don Felder there, but they sounded really awesome. If you saw my interview with Bill Champlin, he talked a little bit about it. They pride themselves on sounding just like the recording, and they do. They very much do. This one, now this was an experience. Paul McCartney, back in the U.S., 2002. He was 60 years old, and he rocked the joint. That was probably, in terms of just the overall experience, one of the most incredible things I've ever been to, on par with the first time I saw Billy and Elton at the stadium. For one thing, he was still looking really good. He didn't look quite that good these days, I don't think. He needs to cut his hair again. But the guy was still in the same key, which he still is today, but he really sounded like he belonged in it at that time. And then it's had some pictures of Beatles stuff and that kind of thing in it. But it was a really thick program, but they did a great video of this where they took footage. I saw that one in Indianapolis. My sister was living out in that neighborhood at the time. That was a lot of fun. Conseco Fieldhouse. This... When I got home from the Billy Joel Elton John concert, I typed up the set list because I had written it down on a piece of paper and put it in my pocket. And I came home and I typed up this set list and printed it out. And this was in the very early days of Microsoft Word. And, I was really proud of that, and I put it in this big fancy frame. And I still have it, of course. And it was... Together, Your Song, Honesty, then Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me with the band. Then Elton played Philadelphia Freedom, Take Me to the Pilot, Leave On, Rocket Man, Simple Life, The One, New York State of Mind, because Billy didn't do it that night. Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding. I guess that's why they call it the blues. Billy came out and did that one with him and Elton's band. Can You Feel the Love Tonight, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, Pinball Wizard, with a big drum break by... Ray Cooper. Then there was an intermission, and then Billy came out and he did I Go to Extremes, Pressure, a little help from my friends in honor of the fact that it was the same weekend that Woodstock was going on, 25-year Woodstock reunion was going on. So he did it like Joe Cocker. Then he did Goodbye Yellow Brick Road because Elton wasn't performing it at the time. Then he did Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. Then he did My Life with the little Ode to Joy opener, which was fun. And Elton came out and joined him for that one. Then it was Lullaby, then River of Dreams, and We Didn't Start the Fire, Still Rock and Roll to Me, Only the Good Die Young, and Big Shot. And then when they came back out together, they did The Bitch Is Back, You May Be Right, Benny and the Jets with a big piano duel. Then they did A Hard Day's Night. Then Lucille, Elton did Lucille as a tribute to Little Richard, and Billy did Great Balls of Fire as a little tribute to, Jerry Lee Lewis. And then they came back out one more time, just the two of them did Candle in the Wind, and then they did Piano Man. So I keep that around as a reminder. That was at Cyclone Stadium in Ames, Iowa, August 13th, 1994. I put that on there for posterity. This is really fun too. This is a picture of the choir I was in college, and this is us at Carnegie Hall. We submitted an audition tape, and we were accepted to go and do a special performance on Easter Sunday of 1997. And I am right there. Very, very young version of myself, sang bass. Oh, and this dude, yeah, right there, the really tall one, he was my friend who was also a big Billy Joel and Elton John fan in high school, and we both went to the same college where we were in this choir together, and he's the one who went with me to the original Ames, Iowa show. So that was fun. We were at Carnegie Hall on stage, and that was really, really a kick. That was March 30th, 1997. So I've been backstage at Carnegie, and it is wild. Being out on that stage where so many people that I've admired and looked up to have been was really, really a thrill for me. This is a poster I made the first time I ever did an Elton John tribute show. Did it all with I had my wife take the picture, and then I edited it in Photoshop and did a bunch of stuff. Found a piano store that let us take a couple of pictures in front of this grand piano. And I kind of made that poster up. So I keep that around as a keepsake because that was a kind of a special evening for me that first time. And then these, well, you know what? I'll show you these last. Those are important. I'm going to have to take the camera off of this holster here. Let me show you a couple other things. This is a really special thing for me. This is a poster for a fundraiser I did several years ago. In 2008, a woman who was the guidance counselor in my elementary school passed away of cancer kind of suddenly, and it shocked everybody. And so a bunch of her friends put together a big fundraising drive for Relay for Life. And they called themselves the Indie Chicks because the theme that year was racing for the cure. And her name was Linda Lund. And they asked me if I would come and do a show as part of a fundraiser. And so I did. I came out and I put on a show on June 18th, 2008. And we had about 400 people showed up for it. It was really something. We ended up selling probably, well, we sold 400 tickets, but we ended up raising almost $15,000. And it was really, really something. So they made that poster for me, and that was back when I weighed like 2 tons. But it was a real special experience for me, and that's a promo photo that I threw together at the last minute for them to use, and it was really special to be a part of that. And so they all signed it and gave that to me as a sort of a token of appreciation, and so I've held on to that, got that on the wall. This is my my photo of the band Chicago, who is my favorite band. They're the ones that I've just was a nut for. Billy Joel and Elton John are my favorite solo artists. They're the band that made the most difference to me, and I got this when I joined their fan club many years ago. So, and it's when Bill Champlin was still in the group. That's the guy I just did my Conversations with the Masters interview with. There he is. This is something that my first wife made for me, but it was attractive when I made my first album, which has sold tens of copies all over the world. But back when I was just a lad, and she made this really nice thing as sort of a wedding gift, actually, when she was still my fiance. And it's so attractive that I put it up because I am proud. Probably not the best music I've ever made in my life, but at the time I was really proud of it, and I'm glad that I went through the process. And then this, boy, this is my pride and joy. That is a newspaper clipping from August 14th, 1994, the day after, and it's from the local like Ames, Iowa paper. The day after the Billy Joel Elton John concert. That's them at the show with my ticket stub in there. Dynamic duo delivers. Billy and Elton duel. Real winners is the crowd. That's what that says. And it says over here, I think it says fans don't let a little mud spoil the party. So anyway, that was really cool. So I've kept that. I put that in a frame the day after the show, and I've held on to that. So I wanted to make sure that was on the wall. And of course, it's right next to this. And you know, for me, this is really fun because I'm glad when I first became a Billy Joel fan, this is what he looked like. You know, this was the 80s look, the late 80s look, from say An Innocent Man to The Bridge, Stormfront, and River of Dreams. That's the Billy Joel that I first became a big fan of. And of course Elton's look has been evolving constantly, but I love the fact that he had on a leather jacket with a leather shirt and leather pants in the summer, no less. But that's the Billy Joel. So I'm glad I got to see him at least once when that was still sort of the look he was sporting. By the time he went on tour again and I had a chance to see him again in the mid-90s, he had gone to wearing a beard, and he's pretty much been beard, goatee, and ever so, you know, and just like progressively balding ever since. It's not that the music's any worse, but I did get to see him this one time when they were still in the same key, and he still had that incredible power and grit in his voice for things like Only the Good Die Young and whatnot. Because he was only about 44 years old at that time, 43, 44. And he looked like the Billy Joel that I really kind of fell in love with, you know. And he was wearing the shades when they took that picture, which was awesome, because I loved him when he was wearing those Stormfront shades. So that's a cool one. That's on the wall. And then finally, the last little piece of memorabilia that I'm going to show you. Oops, back that up a little bit. This is me with my little toy piano. I was probably about 2 at the time. It's me pounding on it. And my dad, these are just snapshots that my mom made. She had them blown up. And of course you can tell it's like 80s film. I need to run them through Photoshop and reprint them sometime and have them, you know, like do some auto levels. But my dad laughs because you see there's this piano right here, and then over here, if you look closely, there's a plastic baseball bat like for wiffle ball. And my dad laughs when he sees this picture because he goes, well, there you are with the 2 things you used to beat the hell out of. Apparently I would carry that bat around with me like Bam Bam from the Flintstones, and just periodically I would feel the need to just take it and slam it on the floor a few times, then pick it back up and just walk around and drag it behind me or carry it over my shoulder. So I really like that bat from what I understand. I can't really remember, but I'm going to take his word for it. And then every so often I'd walk over to that keyboard and just go. Then I'd pick up my bat and walk around. So that's my dad. Well, there you are with the 2 things that used to beat the hell out of. And then of course what's great is right here they put it next to, I don't know if you can see that or not, but right here that's the piano that I learned how to do everything on eventually. It was in our basement. It was the piano my mom had when she was a kid, so it was already old and beat up pretty good by the time I got to it. But I pounded the hell out of this thing for many years. Once I turned 12, I mean, I took lessons and stuff on it when I was really young, but when I turned 12 and got serious, I started really learning how to do the craft of playing the piano on this instrument. They have this little one right in front of it. So there I am with my 2 favorite things to pound on at the time, but standing in front of the friend that would sort of define my life for many years, and I didn't even know it yet. But that piano is still in Kearney, Nebraska, and I don't know if it's still in the house. When my parents sold their house, they left it there, which was okay with me at the time. And I don't know if those people just left it in their basement or if they've had it moved away. But, you know, if I come into enough cash and enough space at some point, I might see if it's possible to buy that back from them if it's still there, and move it out here and just kind of have it as a keepsake. But anyway, that's my memorabilia, and hopefully this is making for a nicer blogging space for you to enjoy, with the two masters behind me and a few assorted items on the wall. I'm sure I'll find a place to put all this other stuff at some point, but they represent a lot of very meaningful memories for me, and I had more things that unfortunately were destroyed in a flood in my room in the basement of my parents' house many years ago. So they got water damaged out. I had a program from a John Denver concert that I got to see that was very special to me because he died a couple years later. And oh gosh, I saw Aerosmith and Celine Dion and a whole bunch of country artists, Garth Brooks, and all kinds of good stuff. And I had programs from all of those, but most of them just got flooded out and tattered up. So that's okay. Still remember the shows really well. So, all right, I'll stop yapping. Thanks for tuning in. Like I say, this was just for fun. Share with you a few things. Let you get to know me a little bit better and some of the stuff that I've been able to do and enjoyed over the years. So I do want to remind you, as always, if you're not having fun when you're making music, you're doing it wrong. And I will see you on the next video, guys.